Hello, this is Michelle Quackenbush, and this is part 2 of the lecture on technology for students with disabilities. Anita in part 1 focused on our 4 readings for the week regarding technology for students with disabilities. 2 of the articles focused on the use of UDL to maximize best practices with assistive technology. Another article discussed the current barriers to accessibility, including a need for systematic improvements for accessibility of technology for all students, system-wide policies, lack of funds for training and implementation, lack of communication, and a shift in thinking on how best to serve our students. The 4th article focused on next steps for the use of technology to improve education. The focus of part 2 of this lecture is the implementation of best practices and tools that are available through assistive technology for our students in the classroom and in society at large. I invite you to take a moment to look at these photos and reflect on how accessibility is critical in our classrooms and in our society and can vary widely depending on students' needs. For those of us without access challenges, it's almost like being a fish in water, where the fish doesn't really notice the water. He swims through it, it's part of his environment. However, when you do have accessibility issues, the world can be much different in navigating it. Therefore, as educators and researchers, we need to consistently and constantly put ourselves in the shoes of our students and others who do need these accessibility features through which assistive technology plays an important part. The Center on Technology and Disability is funded by the United States Department of Education's Office of Special Education Programs, or OSEP. The center is designed to increase the capacity of families and providers to advocate for, acquire, and implement effective, assistive, and instructional technology practices, devices, and services. Research-based technologies used appropriately have great potential for our students in their everyday activities and access to educational curriculum and post-secondary outcomes. On this page, I have highlighted one of their resources, the Digital Accessibility Toolkit, which addresses many of the challenges that we read about in the articles for this week's reading. The toolkit was done in partnership with a consortium for school networking, which addresses an issue brought up in the articles about the need to create system-wide changes for assistive technology. It points out that accessibility is essential for using technology in the best possible way in our classrooms and in our society, for all students, including those with disabilities and English language learners. This particular toolkit offers resources, tips, and information for state and district leaders on how to ensure that accessibility is part of the educational system. It also is a great resource for those of us who are interested in working on policy issues. Next, I'd like to speak specifically to assistive technology in the individual education plan. Usually the assistive technology process in this specific situation has multiple levels. Initially, assistive technology is considered in supporting students. It may require an evaluation to determine if assistive technology is needed or necessary, and the responsibilities for that evaluation depends on the school and the district and state. Next will be assistive technology appearing in the individualized education plan, followed by assistive technology implementation, and then evaluation of assistive technology effectiveness. And regarding the effectiveness we always want to keep in mind that some assistive technology is going to be fixed, an ongoing need in the appropriate tool, and others will be evolving based on the tool or the student's need. I've laid out some considerations here. Briefly, AT should be present in all aspects of the IEP. It should support a student's ability to achieve their goals and present levels. It should be a part of the student's transition plan and address multiple environments. The body of evidence is an opportunity to document prior use for the student, and if the student has used assistive technology, the IEP team needs to do observations and determine how well it has worked. Assistive technology statements in the IEP may provide different tools for daily classroom activities versus testing. In Colorado, the Colorado Department of Education, in their accommodations manual, has some very specific technology tools as well as drop-down menus for language that are very helpful to put into the IEP. Assistive technology should reflect a student's first approach, providing them with training and support, and of course that would also include educators, and input from them as to whether or not they want to have the assistive technology. In my own practice, for example, in high school, I have students who, after using the MP3 player, for example, on the SAT test, no longer want to have the MP3 player. One, because they have not found it useful, and two, it requires them to test over multiple days. The next few slides are a document used in Denver Public Schools for an assistive technology evaluation. I thought it would be useful to all of you, even if Denver is not your school district, because it goes very clearly with the correct legal framework on how to determine whether or not assistive technology is appropriate for a student, and just in general has a very sound practice on how an IEP process should work. Notice that CDE throughout this document refers to the Colorado Department of Education. I would encourage all of you to go to the Colorado Department of Education, as it has resources regarding UDL, assistive technology, in general. It's just a wealth of resources on this topic. The first step is the very basic question: does his student require assistive technology accommodations? This slide speaks to the steps as it specifically relates to the Colorado Department of Education Accommodations Manual. The practices should be similar in other states, starting with identifying student characteristics, possible accommodations, and then creating a list with the other team members. On this page, you are identifying the barriers and whether or not these barriers are fixed or changing, again with the theme being access. And this last page is good planning for IEP in general, accommodations, and specifically whether or not the student would be served by an assistive technology accommodation in terms of gathering your body of evidence, discussing in advance of the meeting with the student, and then holding the meeting around this issue, as well as the other issues for the IEP meeting. Again, in determining, you want to consider if the need is fixed or changing. You want to consider what is the least restrictive option, and you want to be sure that you are focused on access rather than on a particular device or tool. This slide speaks to AT device software options, which goes to the issue of assistive technology implementation. The first consideration for technology should be, what are the rest of the students in the school using? Many accessibility features are built into the devices that our students already have access to, and using them increases their inclusion in the general education classrooms and social acceptance. and you can see some of those listed here on this slide. Again, we want to remember that AT is for access and not for instruction, and that there are many applications and software that provide for this type of support, and that we want to always ensure that our students' data is private. As was discussed in this week's readings and lectures, it's often common that both students and teachers need direct instruction on the use of their AT device for it to be an effective accommodation tool. It can be a shortcoming for schools in that they don't generally consider this when requesting and implementing AT. Student instruction's needs and uses should be a very important factor in this consideration for these accommodations. In addition to the tools on the previous slide, here are some technology tools that can be found at the Colorado Department of Education website that I have included. These tech tools, and there are many more on the website, are possibilities for you to select one, and as part of the discussion assignment this week, discuss your findings about a tool new to you. Assistive technology is very key in our transition planning for our students. Some considerations are that for post-secondary education, there's generally an Office of Services for Students with Disabilities. If it's an employment environment, there's an individual plan for employment for the assistive technology. There's also the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation for support and resources. And for independent living considerations, assistive technology can be available through insurance and assistance programs. Limitations to keep in mind is that assistive technology that students have used in high school is not portable, nor necessarily accessible in the 3 environments listed above. AT availability, expertise, and support will vary in these environments. Students must locate resources and advocate, and this is part of our responsibility as educators to provide them for that self-determination. Assistive technology experience before post-secondary environments is essential so that they will have the training and experience with the assistive technology and any documentation that may be required for them having access to it once they leave high school and are no longer under the IEP. For the last part of this lecture, I wanted to introduce you to the University of Colorado at Denver's College of Engineering and Applied Sciences and their assistive technology partners. You can see from the tabs below all the different areas that they have information on, which are all relevant to our work here. Their mission is to empower individuals with disabilities to achieve their highest potential through assistive technology. They provide clinical services, consultation, education, research, and innovative technology development. I would highly recommend looking at their site. Thank you for your attention to this lecture and your ongoing support of our students. I know that I really find assistive technology challenging and consider it an area of growth for myself. I hope this quote will make you smile and that you will continue to have the courage and commitment to explore assistive technology in the best interest of our students. Thank you.